What's happening? Benton here, rolling out of the truck stop with more peace, more healing, and more deliverance. Boy, howdy, did that happen for me yesterday. Continues into this morning until I started listening to other YouTube content. Started noticing certain less than peaceful sensations in my body, perhaps a tension or two. You know what? I better start my day after this 34-hour restart. I better start my day and go listen to me. I think that'll do. After what happened yesterday on the second stream, actually the first stream, the only stream, my apologies, there was no driving yesterday. Insert, by the way, insert Psalm 23 here. Feel free to go read it for yourselves. All about the valley of the shadow of death and such. My thoughts that whatever is, that's what is being referred to as Lord and He leadeth me beside the still waters and such. That's actually what is referred to there is the most super. At the level of knowing within myself is my nature. So we got that going for us. Just a second, we're gonna check make sure the audio is all right. We are on the speakerphone. That's no good. Bluetooth headset. So my apologies for the poor audio at the top. Should be on the ball now. My loud ass voice probably most of that carried, but in summation, more peace, more healing, and more deliverance is what I'm experiencing. Uh-oh, where are we going? South? This doesn't make any sense. Hang on. See what the GPS is doing to us. Oh, and we got to stop in 6 miles. So be aware of that. Got something to pick up at the Amazon locker. We'll take it easy until we get there. The royal we, of course. Hopefully the audio's better. I woke up and right about midnight, and the company, I did not have a work assignment for today after this delivery. And I went to sleep early, as is my habit, woke up, and there was my day's assignment. So I'm able to start my day super early, which is my preference. I started the old clock there about 12:45 Eastern. And the way the 14-hour clock works, add 2 hours, and that's when the day will finish. At the latest would be 2:45 p.m. So as long as I get done whatever I need to get done. And then they also helpfully told me that tomorrow morning I won't be able to pick my load up until 8 a.m. So plan accordingly. However, it's also quite a deadhead. So I'm pretty sure I'll get to start early tomorrow morning, although perhaps not as early as this morning. So it's all going quite well in the recent truck driving, but the nature of the beast is that, and this is not manifesting, this is being realistic. At some point, although we don't know when that is, but at some point, the job may not be quite as suited to my preferences. But shout out to these Indians, actual Indians, AI, right? Realizing, well, he's quite productive when he gets to run the schedule and that he prefers. And he's, we were suspicious because a lot of people sleep in and, they have every intention of starting their day at 2 a.m. and then they sleep until 4 or 5. Right. But he's actually he wakes up. He never oversleeps. We have drop and hook freight. So how about we just let him do his thing, and everybody's happy. 3,250 miles on the paycheck. That's pretty good for old Benton. It's pretty good for old Benton. I've averaged right at 3,000 a week for like a month here and there when I was with Falcon. I think I did it twice because they had a 12,000 mile a month. I think it was a 5 cent bonus, so that was $600 minus the tax man. Shout out to the chat. Yeah, minus the tax man. And I went in for the coffee, and I allowed myself to be distracted chatting with the Gen Z clerk there at the TA, and lovely gal, and forgot to rinse out my eyeballs. Bummer, dude. But yeah, we ordered those pants, those $37 plus tax, right at $40 pants. My black 3030s. Reminds me of just how bad things were in a way with my health, because my pants got to being so large when I was in LA, when I first got to LA, that I bought the same pants but in 2830s. Now if I try to put those on, I can put them on, but it's like, well, yeah, these really don't fit. So another pair of pants at the Amazon locker here at the Loves, 6 miles from where I did my 34-hour restart. Thankfully, they had already removed my personal conveyance option on my logging, or probably would have bobtailed over here yesterday. No need for that. It's on the way. Well, and actually, well, yeah, never mind. Never mind. It's about to go off on into foolishness. So yeah, back to yesterday's stream. I got a lot out of that, certainly, and the doubling down, right? Doubling down, double daring, death's dystopia of destruction, decadence, depravity, right? And the fact is, I can't speak for these folks who are raising children, but that has to have some kind of impact on them. I'm just assuming, knowing that they've brought more people into this. Not that there's anything wrong with that inherently, but and I can't say I couldn't do it, but at this point, the circumstances under which it would be possible for me to sire offspring, it's effectively impossible, I would say. Not entirely, but it's damn near impossible that would be a part of my life. But then avoiding, the most super intelligent force of love possible can't feel better about itself because these people done fucked up, possibly in a way, whether they would admit it or not, and for their own purposes, their own perhaps ugly purposes. And I'm not, if that's a diminishment, arguably, that I am not exalted by that. That's one of the fundamental misunderstandings that many people, a misapprehension that many folks labor under, that notion. All right, give me a moment. We're going to have to get our focus up here, figure out which entrance to go into. Hopefully they don't have everything all blocked up. Nope, we got ingress and egress. Those are the proper terms. And I don't know how long it is. I've set my GPS up. This is why I pay for this software, because I can do all my my trip planning. So everywhere they're telling me to go on this plan, even tomorrow's pickup, that's like probably over a 3-hour deadhead, maybe longer. I just punch it all into the GPS and it estimates the drive time and everything. And so then I'm able to determine, if this is even possible or not. Or do I need to let the company know, hey, maybe we'll make this, maybe we won't. So now I know what I need to know. That's pretty cool. All right, BRB. Actually, y'all are coming with me, but I have to take the phone, but I think I'm going to mute. All right, we back. Mission almost accomplished. I don't know if it was the break, taking the break so quick into the. I don't know if it's taking the break so quick into the stream or talking about parenthood that did it. Oh, look, we've left the top off the water. That's no good. All right, let's roll. Guy started pulling out of the fuel island when I was walking up, and it's like he's trying to drive around me because it's like you can't wait 2.5 seconds. I'm almost past, sir. Meanwhile, visually, you can't really tell that he's picked this exact moment to drive away, right? Very bizarre, or to pull up rather. People are funny, almost like they do it on purpose, y'all. Wait a minute, where's the phone? Hold the phone, as they say. All right, we're back. Keep me off that zero at least, right? Oh, get your GPS up, partner. Thank y'all for your patience. It's easier, I found, to just kind of do everything all at once, including get the string going. Right. Right. We're going to get into it. I'm feeling good about it. I had a lot of thoughts yesterday. I considered going live, but in the afternoon, but I get too jacked up sometimes. I needed my rest. Needed my rest. This little diversion there cutting into the trip, so I wanted to get that over with as safely and quickly as possible. Check in, make sure everything's all right. What? Early tonight? Yeah, a little early. JT, the hours reset coming off of the 34, and I had been sent a since I had my work assignment based on what I'm doing today. Sometimes some mornings I have to wait a certain amount of time before I start the shift, or I'll run out of hours at the end of the day on my 14, right? And then we get into split breaks and split sleeper and all this stuff that I know how to do, but it's better to avoid all of that when possible. This is actually probably closer to when I would prefer to roll out. If it was up to me, part of that is being properly rested, of course, coming off of the 34. Sometimes I do need, a little bit of extra rest, depending on what I've been doing lately. More rest. Maybe that should have been in the title. More peace, more healing. Well, that is, rest is healing, right? So I guess it isn't there. It is there. How about you? So we're going to cruise on up to Screvendy. Come on, Bubba. You can do it. Talking at the truck. All right. We're still settling in. That's right, settling in. But yeah, I thought that was a really awesome live stream yesterday, and I didn't really look at the live chat too much once I got to really preaching hard. That was certainly some version of like catharsis for me, or well, not version, specifically catharsis, and that's deliverance. So, and what I'm speaking of is, whatever that, it became quite frenetic towards the end, energetically and forceful, right? And, my actual performance of the material, the spontaneous material, which I would like to think is representative of bringing forth, into the moment via creation, my creative force that never lies dormant. That in the course of allowing that to flow, best branding since the situation from Jersey Shore. But I have to say that every time. But birthing that into the realm uh, as a creator, right? That I did receive seemingly, via catharsis, and I mean the actual dictionary definition of the word catharsis. By the way, if anybody is ever confused by my meaning, typically if I'm using a specific word, especially if it sounds fancy, and I'll go back to the main topic, but let's take a side road real quick. So, and I'm getting better over time at noticing that this is not the main road. So let's go down the side road. And the trick will be, can I get back to what I'm saying is the main road, which is describing this process that I went through towards the end of yesterday's stream. I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things to say about all of that. Now we've forgotten what the side road was going to be. Hang on, it's really not. Maybe. I think if I try to go back down the main road, it will. The side road will then become visible. Tempting. Deliverance. Oh well. It's funny how the mind works. Oh, specific big words. See, I knew I would remember. So, society and the programming and things have been, and probably for most of my life, although nobody ever made fun of me for using big words growing up. Isn't that interesting? I was fully accepted. It just, if I had a big word to say, I said the big word. Nobody ever said anything. Nobody ever made fun of me. Now I'm starting to look back on it. Maybe was that some of the reputation of my family as, hell raisers to some extent. I don't know. Why is that? I don't know. But I was never made fun of or bullied for reading books and using big words. So the use of the big words is not to sound fancy or intelligent. And it seems like a lot of folks, NPCs, normies, the movie Idiocracy, like the courtroom scene from Idiocracy, and this idea that they made fun of the way this guy talked, Luke Wilson, the main character, the actor Luke Wilson, who was more or less just an average dude of nowadays, into the future, he's a fucking genius. That's how dumb the people are in the movie. That's one of the, maybe the entire premise of the movie, actually. Okay, yeah, 2 hours and 10 minutes, and then we drop a trailer and bobtail to a drop yard and hook up to a loaded trailer, and then drive to Knoxville, Tennessee, which could be a live unload. I don't know. Probably a drop trailer. Not exactly sure. And then a deadhead, part of a deadhead. So yeah, I won't say easy day, but it's easy. It makes my job easier, certainly. But so typically when I use a word like catharsis, and of course there will be times I will speak hyperbolically, right, or tongue in cheek or exaggerating for effect, but generally I'm going to mean the actual, like, we can look it up, Google it, and that's what I mean. Typical. I don't know what's going on here, but hit the fast lane, hit the hammer lane, get around this dude. I see why he's middle laning it. So a bunch of people parked on the shoulder on account of the rest area. And then the government will eventually crack down, but until they do, all the truckers, when they run their clocks out and can't find parking, well, let's just head for the rest area. Rest area is full, so we'll just park on the shoulder overnight. Not safe. Not safe. It's not, and again, the idea of safety in numbers, it doesn't become safe because a bunch of people who think the same way are all doing the same thing. That creates a herd where they're like, well, everybody else is doing it. But yeah, that doesn't mean that we're not going to give you a ticket, sir. And a failed inspection in Louisiana. Not me, but apparently one of the company's drivers. I think I know who, but I can't. I'm not certain, but I think I know. I suspect I know. So yeah, catharsis, the dictionary definition of catharsis. But then it's also, I absolutely know how to use these words correctly. Part of the reason I know is because I actually go back a lot of the time and look it up myself when I'm having versions of these broadcasts in my head at various times in any given day. And I will actually go look up the word to check myself, right? To test the spirits in a way, right? To make sure that because some people will say, well, what does that word mean? And if I can't define it off the top of my head in the moment, that can be used to make it seem like, oh, he's just trying to show off. He doesn't know what it means. It's like, well, I'm using it correctly, but you're right. Let's look it up and everybody will know what it means. I don't need to have the dictionary definition memorized, right? That's not required. And then, so that reminds me, being picked at in that way does remind me of whatever was going on in the chat near the end of yesterday's stream, where I read at least one comment that, and I'm a scanner, I skim and scan quite effectively. So I immediately, and I wasn't even able to see the entire comment because of how garbage StreamYard is, but I don't even want to get into that. But I detected whataboutism. While I'm having this experience of, quite possibly in the moment expressing my true essence, which I'm contending and asserting is one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest vibrational levels. And so now I'm detecting a whataboutism. Well, okay, we hear what you're claiming, Benton, but what about this, that, and the third? Well, guess what? And to quote the late Dick Gregory, truth, and I'll add my own little stink to it. Truth, by definition, is manifest. So this truth that's manifesting in the moment on the stream yesterday via my creative force that never lies dormant and expressing what may very well be my true nature in that moment, which would represent manifesting truth, doesn't have to be, to quote the late Dick Gregory, or more correctly, cannot be, until proven otherwise, validated by the whataboutismers, ignorance. The fact that the whataboutismer is ignorant and does not have knowledge of self, presumably, although whether or not that individual would claim or could claim, none of my business or concern. I haven't heard that claim. I'm claiming in a revolutionary fashion, and this was one of the epiphanies. And it seems to me like if one looks at the dictionary definition of the word epiphany and one looks at the dictionary definition of catharsis, there probably are some similarities there energetically, I'm assuming. I suspect. So I'm having an epiphany. I'm covering new material. By the way, is this not, as I'm asserting, would not this epiphany be a result of, being tapped in or blessed in or, wisdom bestowed upon me via my own true nature, which is this force that I'm referring to as the most super intelligent vibrational energies at the highest level? Like, isn't that what's happening? So imagine that's happening. Imagine being tapped in, as some of these chatters are, to be in the right place. What could be the right place at the right time, but that would be a matter of perspective. In the right place at the right time to even hear this and witness this, by the way, to witness this, and then to respond with whataboutisms, which to me, and this is a concept I would not have the words for. Shout out to the late Dick Gregory, rest in power, brother, the late black comedian. Truth cannot be validated, or what he said, truth doesn't need to be validated by your ignorance, or in this case, their ignorance, which they do seem to be. The chatters, at least two of them, seem to be attempting to, again, ensnare the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, and then run it through a gauntlet and a series of hoops and an obstacle course of, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? Well, to run that obstacle course, I, right, as the practitioner or the one manifest, the one through which the matrix, by the way, I am the matrix, because matrix is another womb, another word for womb. So if I'm serving as the vessel or the means of birthing that manifested truth into the realm in that moment, right, via in a killing of multiple birds with a killing of two birds with one stone, via catharsis that is also for me serving as healing and deliverance energetically within my own energy sphere as the manifested truth, via my essence expressing out of the mouth of babes, perhaps, right? Spiritually, in a sense, I've referred to, it seems like all of these spiritual practices and asceticism and all of this and on and on and on, meditation, watching, watching the things happening, and guiding and also being guided by that force. God is love, the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. If that's true, well, the kingdom of that force is within me. And if that's true, then better learn how to get out of my own way, realize that that is my essence, is one with that, not we are one at the highest level. Because if you're in the realm and you haven't achieved that, the same level of knowledge and realization of that, in fact, yes, that's also my essence, and I would now be speaking from the other person's perspective in this example that I'm giving. I know it can be confusing, even to me. Then no, we, if the we is me and any other individual who is even one iota short of true knowledge of self, we are not one at the highest level, because we ain't the same thing in those moments in which I am expressing via my creative force that never lies dormant, that I'm serving as the womb or matrix and bringing, then now that essence, my essence is flowing through me into the realm, right? And I would assert that that was happening in yesterday's broadcast, maybe not the entirety of the broadcast. And then when the crescendo was reached, the climax, dare I say, at which point, as the climax was occurring, now I'm looking down at the whataboutisms and the whataboutismers, right? And I'm thinking to myself, what is this? And ended the stream, because I'm in my expressions of the most super intelligent force of love possible, as I'm asserting in a revolutionary way, by the way. What in this realm is of death and destruction could possibly be more revolutionary than saying, yes, I am that one, meaning the most super intelligent force of love possible. Everything that's not that ain't me, right? And belongs to this realm of death and destruction. What higher form of revolution exists than to, number one, put the nose to the metaphorical grindstone within oneself and to then conduct enough trials and experience enough tribulation and go through the pain and agony and asceticism to even achieve that self-realization, right? And I will not be falsely humble about my achievement. I cannot be humble and falsely humble when it comes to that. I don't have that ability. I'm supposed to be proud I'm supposed to feel accomplished and superior, dare I say, when that does express. Why would I? Oh, but you're not supposed to be prideful. You're not supposed to be arrogant. Well, guess what? My nature can't be those things. So what do I have to worry about? That's a revolutionary statement. Well, actually, when I express my essence, I'm not capable of the negative forms of that duality or those dualities. So I have, by the way, my essence can't worry about that. So my essence, answering as itself, would have to say, well, what does it matter? Because I'm not capable of the negative aspects, the detrimental forms of those energies anyway. What does it matter? And can the most super intelligent force of love possible trick itself into believing and then feeling as if it's superior? Because make no mistake, folks, the revolution of this individual speaking to you, that directly threatens these other individuals, more specifically the whataboutismers. It's a threat to them because now we're going crabs in a bucket. What does the whataboutism itself represent? Crab in a bucket. Oh, look at him. He's getting uppity. He's getting arrogant. He's feeling superior. We better go over there. Let me climb up on you, Clyde. Clyde the crab with your claws. Let me climb up on you. Let me scurry up the side of Clyde, and let's go ahead and pull old Britain down with the rest of us. Crabs in a bucket style. I didn't come here for crabs in a bucket, motherfuckers. You can shove your whataboutisms in a sack. It's going to have a millstone tied around it. The only question at this point is that millstone going around your neck, partner. Not yours, my apologies, theirs. Metaphorically, of course. YouTube terms of service, I can't be threatening, folks. Them's metaphors, Alphabet, Google, YouTube's hell pit. I don't need to be smote or smitten. So I ain't got time for that. But so what happens in the past when the whataboutisms have been able to find a foothold into me, but they never would. See, random bozo can't whataboutism me. And this is where the realm of death and destruction will find a way to attack someone like me through a friendship with someone who now is here on the whataboutism. And see, that has found footing, at least temporarily in the recent past, right? So if I'm falling susceptible, if those temporarily, those weapons are prospering temporarily, why is that? It's because I was not properly identified within myself yet. It was before the recent events of the last 2 weeks. I wasn't there yet, and I still don't know if I'm fully there. I'm at least there in being able to perform the revolution, to give the performance of the revolutionary, the spiritual revolutionary, not the revolution, not EBT's revolution, enslaved by truth, not his supposed revolution of, well, let's just all go out here and do our best imitation of Christ. Now, this is me paraphrasing some ideas that I heard him espouse recently. And then only ever strength in numbering things. And, well, I'm an individual and you're an individual, and probably we should get together individually. We should get together individually and do these things. Coming as close as possible to the revolution of, well, maybe I should embrace individualism within myself and fully master, right? How about the mastery of the power center of the individual? How about that, EBT? And then see what's possible. And so I've at least maybe, well, certainly have, so if this self-realization, this true knowledge of self if that's a new room or a new series of rooms in a metaphor, well, I'm at least have gone through that door. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not more work to be done, right? But that is, this is a revolution, but it's not a revolution of, okay, now there's an army, right? One man army. I ain't got no people. This is a one man army, OMA style, baby. GDI, goddamn independent. Believe that. And that's not to take the Lord's name in vain. In fact, spiritually, as I assert, if this is a holy individual experience spiritually, then it has to be a one man army. So everything that ain't, from my perspective, everything that's not the one man army might as well be, of this individual, might as well be dead. There's another revolution. I don't have the option. I ain't got no people. I don't have the option of strength in numbering this shit. I don't have the option of, oh, let's get into a herd and feel protected. That's for the ones that are not yet able to exhibit what I exhibit. Exhibit. Hashtag GOML, or don't, because everything that is unable to prove itself able to achieve my level and possibly greater levels. But hey, it's almost like it's a race or a game or a competition. And now, at least in these folks in this so-called truth community, the panel verse and all of this, it seems like old Bitten here that perhaps the revolution of this individual, and it has to be one-man army style, it seems like, well, maybe it is an obstacle course spiritually, and I'm now proving, well, actually, the bar has been set higher. That what we thought was the entirety of the course, look, Benton unlocked an entirely new section of the obstacle course. Meanwhile, he's showing that the rest of us haven't even gotten to where he's gotten within what we were already willing to admit was the obstacle course. He's so far ahead. Now he's unlocking and reporting on and describing parts of the unlocked obstacle course. And we're still dealing with the obstacle course. And that's how far he's rushed ahead. It's almost like that's what's happening, folks. And as much as I can, see you in the mud pit, if I've lapped you metaphorically, and maybe I can give you a hand up out of you falling on your face into the mud pit, right? Marine Corps crucible style or whatever. I guess the Army has that too. And I never got to experience that crucible. Meanwhile, turns out I was going to put myself through a greater crucible, an exponentially greater crucible. And I'm here reporting on my experiences. If you find value in it, you're welcome. If you whataboutism it, that's fine. But that can't touch what I am. What I am can't be touched by a whataboutism. And now I'm feeling the way I felt yesterday. I'm feeling healing. I'm feeling deliverance. I'm feeling catharsis, because I still experience some of that, what some folks would call PTSD, these stagnated energies, and still a little bit of pain and old, ugly energy forms I got trapped in my energy sphere. A whole lot of that got released yesterday. That's the deliverance. So in reaching that frenzied crescendo, whatever that, as those energies vibrated higher and higher and more frenetically, it burned off a pretty good portion. And that is the healing of Christ, folks. And that is my testimony. Christ has healed me. Christ has delivered me from wickedness and continues to do so when I get out of my way enough to allow it to happen, because it happens through manifestation and flowing through me, because it has to be truth. And the moment one falsely believes that they can grasp and hang on to truth and possess truth and wield it and use it against others, it begins the process of decay and death. And truth can never be a dead thing. Truth is living. Truth is manifest. And where? In the moment. That's the only place anything is able to live in this realm of death and destruction. The only potential for life is right here and right now. What's not right here and right now is dead, or may as well be. And yeah, supposedly there's folks over in Africa right now in this moment. I can't prove it. Perhaps there are. Don't know. No way of knowing. Oh, here's a video feed. Oh, well, that could be a deep fake. That could be somewhere else. I don't know that that's Africa. See how it works? How about you? So, yeah, go ahead and whataboutism, these people in the chat yesterday, go ahead and whataboutism these logically sound structures and artifices that I'm building spontaneously by tapping into my essence, which is the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. Look at this art, right? Life as art, by the way. Life as art. Maybe I'm the greatest living artist in this moment. I don't know. Only by accessing the past, right? The recent past, would that even be able to be determined? So it's at least theoretically possible. If living art, if life as art is able to be submitted to the contest, actor on the world stage. Interesting. And the proof is in the pudding. What about ismers? The proof is in the pudding. We know the tree by the fruit. If I'm not able to live the fruits of what I'm now referring to as this in the revolution of this individual, then it proves itself to be null and void whataboutismers, and there's no need for your whataboutism. In fact, I would say that the mere necessity for the whataboutism, right, means that y'all know that you're not onto something, and you at least suspect, because see, now we're playing poker. You at least suspect that old Benton is on the right track, don't you? Don't you? I think you do. I think you do. See, I don't need to slam on my brakes for that state trooper back there, even though I was going 72 in a 70. It's because he's playing the long game, trying to see if I'll forget myself and get to going 77 down this hill like I did a recent hill. So he's watching me from afar. I don't need to worry about, since I'm already not really speeding, I don't need to concern myself about what I've done right in front of him. See how it works. He's wanting to see if I'm heavy enough and dumb enough. It's kind of the same thing in a way. Heavy and dumb to get to going too fast down this hill. That's how most of them get tickets that are getting tickets. So the whataboutisms are null and void, but that it represents a bet and a raise, right? It's to always raise the bet. It's like, okay, we hear what Benton is expressing in this moment on yesterday's stream, and we appreciate bits and pieces of it. However, here comes an attempt to, which is a testing of the spirits, by the way. So it's not entirely useless, right? And the fact is, it's certainly my own super high functioning retarded humanity, right? And also known as undiagnosed fake autism. The fact that I'm so bothered by the whataboutisms, it's because what I would want for people is something that I've achieved And it's not the entirety of what I would want, but I do permit myself to become frustrated at times. And I'm in the process continues of doing this less and less. But the fact is, and here's why it bothers me. I understand now why it bothers me. Because until people rise to the level within themselves logically and intellectually to where they abandon the whataboutisms for the most part, although, yes, I do. Again, show me a human, I will show you a hypocrite. At times, do I introduce a whataboutism? Of course I do. And then more and more, I'm on the lookout. And as I review my recent performance, I say, well, actually, that was a whataboutism. And perhaps I could have gone about that a different way because I'm in the process of completely removing the whataboutisms. Although arguably they do have their place, right? Arguably, the whataboutisms do have their place. Arguably, one could argue, but not as a spiritual attack. Which again, no weapon formed can prosper against the most super intelligent force of love possible. It can't happen. So in a way, this is the Eastern or Buddhist notion of the enemy is actually providing me with a service. So the spiritual attack via a person that I might otherwise want to think of as my friend, and this certainly, whether that person has an intention to spiritually attack me or not, that's not what's relevant. What's relevant is, does this represent, in fact, to me, from my perspective, a spiritual attack? Yes, it does. Absolutely. That's all that's relevant from my perspective. The intention is neither here nor there, in a way, right? And many folks will just get lost in the intention and then see, well, that, as if that's not an absolution, saying, well, this was my intention. Number one, I'm going to, what choice do I have but to take one's word for it? They're free to lie and say, well, actually, I was coming from a pure intention. Number two, they may be lying to themselves about their intention. They may be motivated by intentions and agendas that they themselves are not even aware of because they are under demonic oppression, potentially. And I would say anybody that would say, I see your Psalm 23, Valley of the Shadow of Death, cup runneth over, and I raise you the Lord's Prayer, which seems to indicate, yes, you will be behaving and operated at by the most super intelligent force of love possible in this realm at a level of mere subsistence, right? Your daily bread, your bowl of gruel, right? While you're dressed in your rags at the monastery, right? In that big room with the gruel. See how we've been predictably programmed, right? Now you're in the medieval times. Now Benton's in medieval times, right? Friar Benton in his brown robe, right? In the monastery, and everything's brown and stained wood, and he's got his brown bowl of a gray gruel, your daily bread. He's scooping up the gruel with his daily bread, right? And so why did I feel the way I felt for about a day and a half? And in fact, I crashed out to some extent in the way I communicated, via those attacks. So yeah, they did temporarily find footing, see. And the person through which the attacks came could be completely unaware of, number one, the what seems to me to be demonic oppression, and number two, that those forces would see Benton as so key and valuable. And by the way, those entities would absolutely realize that I was on, because they're capable of judging and critiquing. They would have to be. They would understand, while Benton's right on, he's scraping up against the edge of this thing. He's right on the edge of this true knowledge of his essence. And it's better for us in the spiritual war. It's better for those spirits that have found fertile ground within an individual, if that's indeed the case. And if that individual's listening to this, he's surely intelligent enough to know who I'm talking about. Meanwhile, Not really my business ultimately, but I'm certainly capable, and I don't need to be granted the authority to observe and report and deductively reason and guess, right? Mr. Miyagi, how can I possibly know that? Well, I can develop a track record of being about 85% correct over time, sir. That's good enough for me. Is it possible this is one of the 15% instances of error and folly? Sure, but I like my odds, sir. I like my odds. Uh, Focusing on the exception is not going to get us anywhere, or not going to get me anywhere. And I don't think it's going to get Mr. Miyagi anywhere. Right. We've introduced not being able to get the long-term form of cinnamon, which is Ceylon, which I'm probably not pronouncing properly. We're on the cassia, the cheaper form, which is tastier, uh, but it can only be used for a short time. Apparently builds up in the body to some extent and can damage the liver, so they say. So the system says. I don't know. Somebody pointed out, like, hey, people don't exercise moderation in, all of these horrible Franken foods that damage the body. But then as soon as they want to go into detoxing and healing the body, now they want to be very moderate about, substances that may have the power to that can powerfully heal the body. It's like, should I really be scared of the motherfucking cinnamon? Well, the cinnamon challenge does drop a person or two here and there. So yeah, probably I should, but I won't fear using it twice a day for a couple of weeks. Got to get up that hill. Beans don't burn in the kitchen. Beans don't burn on the grill. Anyway, let's not sing the theme from the Jefferson. But and so what bothers me about the whataboutisms I'm discovering is that I'm recognizing that my preference would be ultimately, so a lot of my preferences of what I would want and dare I say, reasonably be able to expect from my fellow humans would be to bring their game up intellectually with the logic and reason to a proper level, because I know within myself the performance is always at the lowest level, mind, body, and spirit. So, in fact, I watched a YouTube video about The Sopranos, and if anybody's familiar with that, there was a character, Carmine Jr., son of one of the big bosses of one of the families, Carmine Sr., and that Carmine Sr. was one of the few that managed to escape prison or dying from the so-called mafia life and just died of natural causes, presumably. I don't have the show memorized, as some might, but anyway. But Carmine Jr. in the show was portrayed as like a doofus, a Dumbo, right? Unsophisticated, Nepo baby. But however, by the time The Sopranos ended, the person who had watched the show could see, well, actually, he lived the show in Miami, separated from these wars and the downsides of the danger and the mafia life, right? And presumably escaped prison and escaped followed the example of his father and escaped prison or dying directly as a result of the mafia life. So in that moment of listening to this video on YouTube and reading the comments, I was able to have a greater understanding, which is people were discussing, well, in fact, was he not as dumb as people thought? And actually, so I'm reading all of this and it's like, well, actually, he demonstrated what functions as greater intelligence, meaning how did he do that? He performed at a greater overall level objectively, meaning everybody else either went to prison or died as a result of the life or had to become rats, meaning they had to lose their honor, right? Based on their own code, they lost their honor. The destroyed infrastructure made the bills fall from their hidey hole in the top, and now the bills are physically damaged because they have like you know, mimeograph paper or whatever inside of them, and now they're physically damaged because the road is so damaged and destroyed, greatest country on earth style, that they vibrated out of their hidey hole up top. My fault, of course. I understood this was a possibility, but in falling to the floor of the tractor, it's come apart. So we've got that to look forward to later on. Hopefully, there's no water or liquids on the floor, because that's where they now are, because there's nowhere else for me to put them where they will be secure. Well, they're not secure, but where they won't perhaps fall again. So what it is that what is happening is the person who made the video about Carmine Jr. from The Sopranos, what they're doing is they're taking his intelligence and they're putting it in a vacuum and they're viewing it outside of its proper context, because necessarily it's only ever operating within the context of mind, body, and spirit. And surprise, surprise, the actor who played Carmine Jr. was probably the most healthy, or at least the least unhealthy of all of them. Just looking at him, right? And certainly his health would have been above the average of the rest of them, right? Certainly. Is he actually going to pull me over? I might actually be getting pulled over now. Wow. All right. We'll be back or not. No, he's after somebody else, I expect, unless he wants me to pull into there. I can't really tell. But we're going back on the highway, and then he can pull us over if he wants to. The popo. It's hard to tell, but certainly I was doing something that may have been illegal. So I just pull over and give him a shot at us if he wants us. Sometimes they like it when you just admit guilt, but now he's after that four-wheeler. He's after that four-wheeler up there. Now we're in a pickle. Hang on, we're in a pickle. We're in a big old pickle now. Creating an unsafe situation. If he pulls me over for this, I'll say, yeah, I did it unknowingly. It wasn't my intention, but yeah, I did create an unsafe situation, sir. My bad. But I'm now using my driving skill to get out of it. Well, these bozo four-wheelers enticed me into the hammer lane, which I've never verified if I'm even legal in the hammer lane or not. The third lane on the 3-lane. Some states you're legal unless otherwise posted. Some states you're never legal. It's hard to. I probably should just look it up. But so cop pulled out as soon as I went by, but I went ahead and surrendered. By the way, surrender is a valid tactic from the art of war. Maybe he was thinking about it. Maybe he wasn't quite sure who he wanted to get yet. And he said, well, that guy surrendered, so we'll just go ahead and get the four-wheeler. Who knows? But remember, America has indoctrinated its people that you can't ever give up. All Americans have a thought, especially the conservatives and the traditional family values. They have an idea in their head of the frog in the ocean bird's mouth, and it says never surrender, and the frog is strangling the ocean bird. Like that's what we think we are. No spiritual surrender equals that will mean you can't, no spiritual victory. So back to Carmine Jr. So he demonstrated his superior grasp of intelligence, right, in the show by operating at a greater level when perhaps in a vacuum his intelligence could be judged as below a Tony Soprano and some of these. Who was that other guy? I forget the name of the guy. There's another guy that was real smart, and Tony certainly was very intelligent. But part of me driving at 2 a.m. is if these bozos make traffic, I'm getting in the motherfucking fast lane, and that's just what it's going to be. And if the cops want to talk about it, I'll just tell them what I did and why I did it. Now I got one wants to race, so we're going to slow way down and get behind him. FedEx, you can't even go fast enough to race me, and that's why sometimes when these guys they can go fast, but they're limited. It's maybe he can only go 70 on the flat, but he can go faster downhill if he's heavy enough. They want to go as fast as humanly possible the entire time, right? It's like I shouldn't have to go. Now we're in a race because I got to go 76. I got a faster truck, brother. You can't outrun me in the long run. Why do this to us? Why? But he's doing it. It's okay. We'll let him have it. But what I'm not going to do is just ride in the fucking hammer lane. Now we're going to have semis blocking all lanes. We're not doing that. Yeah, 72. He can't get over about 73. He's on a run. And then, when I was with Snyder, these mega carriers, what that ends up being like, if the truck will only go 63 on the flat, pretty soon when they get into one of these little towns in Oklahoma, they want to go 63 into 45, and now they're getting tickets. Like, yeah, if you let them go faster, they're probably not. That's probably not going to happen to it. All right. Yeah, poor little feller. Look at this poor little feller. We're going to blow his doors off now. He thinks he can hang with us. He can't. That was my mistake, was thinking I could pass him without having to go 76. All right, so now we're going to blow his doors off. And listen to the AI voice tell us to reduce our speed. Please reduce speed. Please reduce speed. And the company loves this as long as I don't get no tickets. They love it. Please reduce speed. As long as I don't get tickets, they love it. Reduce speed. Please reduce speed. The insurance is happy because we got the AI voice hollering a little bit. And she does work some of the time. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to be speeding right now. I'll reduce my speed. But when I need to speed, bitch, you're just going to have to keep squawking. I'm getting through some traffic here, lady. Mama don't always understand. They say if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Well, part of being a man at times is being able to tolerate when old mama's squawking because she don't know what the fuck she's talking about. Please reduce speed. Reduce speed. More stuff falling from the top. What is that? Is that the other half of the bills? when it's supposed to be all one thing on account of the mimeograph paper. Whatever that's called. I forget what the name for that is. Now I got to pass this guy. May not be able to. Might have to get behind him. I don't know how fast he's going. 73 get us around you, sir? Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, I think it will. This is one of the things. It's like I end up doing a lot of actual driving sometimes at 2 in the morning. Like this is way more driving than is normally required. Having to pay strict attention to what I'm doing here. Now I got to get it far enough in front of this guy so I can slow down. It'd be rude to slow down too soon and make him potentially slow down. And we'll let him decide. If he catches up, pulls out the pass, I'll let him around. So one thing, FedEx wanting to go as fast as humanly possible, not let me pass him at 2 in the morning, caused all of that. Thanks. Now the coffee's leaking. Anyway, quite the mess. I almost bought another coffee mug yesterday at Walmart, perhaps, or the day before. Or no, that was yesterday. Now he's catching this because the stupid truck wants to cruise and go 71 to save fuel. When I got the cruise set at 73. I don't know what's going on up here. We got weird construction zone happenings. So give me a second. Now just bizarre construction zone things are happening. All right, I think we're maybe back to normal here. Goodness. Just never know what's going to happen out here on the road. So what I realized, back to this Carmine Jr. from Sopranos, if anybody even remembers what I was talking about, it's been so long. So Carmine outperformed via exhibiting superior intelligence in the show, right? And part of that is he probably learned from his father by watching his father, not to do certain things that could cause the mob boss to die or go to prison, right? To be murdered or go to prison, dying from the mafia life. And then he utilized his intelligence, mind, body, and spirit to perform to the level that allowed him to, you know, be mostly in legitimate business while also fulfilling whatever his obligations were, to the life that, originally provided the resources to go legit to some extent, right? Still technically a criminal in this world of death and destruction. So, and then the peanut gallery and the just the normies wanting to debate, well, was he less dumb than we thought, right? Well, actually, and then also somebody wanted to refer to him in the show. It was played sort of for comedic effect that Carmine Jr. liked to espouse these like spiritual philosophies, right? But he did it in a way where it made it seem like he did not have a grasp of the concepts. And then he would either intentionally or just out of ignorance, like mispronounce certain words, right? Whether that was intentional or unintentional. But then I realized, well, I've watched the show and I understand it was kind of played for buffoonery and comic effect. But then wouldn't an actual, like a Polly Walnuts type of character on some level, even speaking these philosophies and, Confucius say type of things, it's going to come across a certain type of way anyway, right? And so then it struck me in the moment, he can't even give a bozo recitation of the concepts if he doesn't grasp the concepts. He has to have a grasp of the concepts to even espouse them in the first place, or people won't know what the fuck he's talking about. The fact that in the show, we at least understand what he's referring to in the first place, he has to have some understanding of the concepts. The fact that he's able to plausibly refer to the thing itself proves that he has at least a intermediate level grasp of that material. It proves it. It also proves that the people who can't see the intelligence in that prove themselves to not even have the level of intelligence that that character was able to exhibit. Isn't that interesting? While also considering themselves superior, because in a vacuum, they probably are able to exhibit a greater level of attainment, in the strictly intellectual realm. When actually the performance, it's always the mind, the body, and the spirit, whatever the lowest level of those is. And now we're back to the one of the two bozo four-wheelers that caused this entire thing in the first place, where that led to me pulling over on the shoulder. This is one of the two. I'm pretty sure one of the two got pulled over. I will as soon as I start to pass the semi up here. Because now we got the four-wheeler might speed up just because I sped up. So we'll see what happens here. Because now I caught them and started to pass them at 73. Now they're keeping up with me at 76. Dumbo. That's a Dumbo thing to do. They're probably looking for somebody to follow, though. Much like most of the bozos in this realm. Lord knows if I wanted to take all of this stuff I can spout nowadays and turn it into some kind of business, but I'm not able to. And I think that's what's meant by he who knows tells it not, he who tells knows it not. How about that? And I don't mean telling in the context of these broadcasts. I mean to create some sort of movement or religion or cult and to then, have people initiated into some sort of organization. That would be the telling, right? I might just go 70. It's just now everybody's out here going close to my speed all of a sudden. Might have to slow our roll. And back to me, right? Back to the revolution of me, just saying, yeah, I am that one. And why or how could I even be humble when expressing my essence, what I know to be my essence? One with the most super intelligent force of love possible, right? At the highest level. And furthermore, that's other people's expectations. What's that got to do with me? If somebody else has a preference, and they want to crabs in a bucket it, and damn sure don't want me seemingly rubbing their nose in their own fucking lack of progress. And, that may be some of the audience around here at times. Or maybe, many of you are just arrogant enough to say, well, I'm close enough to Benton's level. I don't interpret this as he's bragging or I don't feel, put down as a result. Or just some will say, good for you. Maybe I'll get there someday. Or also maybe they'll say, well, I'm not hating, but, I'm going to watch and see what's he able to show. I understand that he's saying all of this. And we've all seen many, many people, discover some, working out and eating right and losing weight and just all these things about life. Right. And a momentum that's not sustained, and I know when I throw down the gauntlet and put my name on it that I am, creating a track record, and I could, it's within the realm of possibility that later on in the future the results simply won't be there. That's possible. It's my job to, and in some way to express the nature of the force that can't fail. It's not capable of failing, and that's the example of Christ, and that's one of the many fundamental misunderstandings of Christianity and why I won't call myself a Christian. And a misunderstanding of the material itself is what Christ is can't fail. It's not that, oh, well, there was a man that exhibited perfection because he was also the Most High in the flesh, but he did it, but you can't do it. Well, what if, but now, well, wait a minute, but what if my essence is the same essence that, in fact, I believe and know came here and performed all of that perfectly, by the way, and two birds with one stone style apparently achieved the redemption of the Adamic race, and I do believe that to be the case. If people think that's ridiculous, that's fine. That's an absolutely valid opinion. I won't fight you on it. That's why, I'm able to get along with somebody like Venus Cupcake because, I don't need Venus to not find everything I just said ridiculous. That's completely fine if she finds it ridiculous. It's not my concern. Now, if she hears me talking this way too many times, maybe she will not come back. I don't know. But then again, probably she actually exhibits a lot of these characteristics of Christ-like in her own life, right? So some of the most Christ-like people I've ever encountered don't speak the way I speak and don't talk in these terms and don't really want to be around people who do. Probably. I can't speak for them. Or maybe are willing to tolerate, someone like me, perhaps. Perhaps. 6 miles to my exit. We'll be on the lookout for that. So it's, again, the programming of the realm, the psychology of the realm, by the realm, for the realm, right? Our psychologies individually. That's the thing that comes up with these ideas around Christ and the nature of Christ, pardon me, which is when the Christ consciousness is experienced and expresses, it lacks the ability to fail. It can never fail. So to ever concern myself with delivering a perfect performance, or even worse, to say, well, I can't perform perfectly in a time frame. Bullshit. The revolution is to say, bullshit. I am that one that can perform perfectly over a time frame. Now, not the entirety of this earthly life, probably not even the entirety of the next hour. I knew we'd have a deliverance on stream one day. I almost went live one morning. I pulled over and got delivered from wicked spirits, unclean spirits, and demonic spirits in the name of Christ Jesus. Praise Almighty God in the mighty name of Christ Jesus. But that's what that was. That was one of these demons saying, I've had enough of this. I'm getting up out of here, Jack. Expelled through the throat chakra. Exorcised. He said, as much as I like to be in a human body, because the potential for wickedness, the potential to experience whatever that that now disembodied wicked spirit, whatever it wanted to hang out long enough to potentially experience again, it said, you know what? At this point, it would rather walk in the dry place. It would rather walk in the dry place, right? It would rather walk in the dry place, seeking rest and finding none, than to remain within the energy sphere of Benton, who increasingly is moment to moment expressing his nature that's one with the most super intelligent force of love possible. By the way, the house of the Lord, right? That spirit that just left, or spirits can't ever experience. That's where it started, if the Bible's to be believed, right? Again, in the story of the Bible, that's where that spirit began, right? Now it can never return because it's degenerated. And it said, I don't want to even say it had to get the fuck up out of here. And that's what you just heard on stream. That's how real this spiritual warfare is. That's how real this deliverance is. That's how real the oppression is. That's how real the enemy is. I know the enemy. I have experienced the enemy. I know my nature. I experience my nature. I am the natural law. That's the revolution. The revolution is to be able to express the answers to the where and the how. See, the where and the how of that proposition, because the proposition contained within the proposition are the answers to the where and the how. Whereas someone like Enslaved by Truth talks about the things that I am exhibiting and never even gets far enough in his own thought process to ask, well, where and how? Well, the expression of that thing that EBT is referring to, that, you can choose to believe or not believe that was deliverance from a demonic, wicked, unclean oppression. That's you're free to accept or not. I know what I experienced. I know exactly what I experienced. I felt it. I felt it leave. And I knew to cough as hard as possible. Right. Now, maybe that's just the expelling of a certain layer of, that stagnated energies. Right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that is demonic. The fact that those energies are even able to find rest within my sphere, or at least in the past were able to. That's demonic, as far as I'm concerned. So that is healing and deliverance right here in the moment. That is the power of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the love side of it, because I don't need to, there's no reason to concern myself with my nature. If it's my nature, it's the getting out of my own way and refusing to rebel, or more correctly, submitting to my own nature within myself. My nature then expresses via my creative force. Do you see how this is all like a backwards of what most people how most people seem to just take for granted that this would work, by the way, and have never seen it work? See, I came from it correctly. I approached the issue correctly. I did. I did. I approached it correctly. Now these truckers won't let me get in the proper lanes. I guess they know the proper lane and I don't. Thus exhibiting what? A superiority in a way. Oh, I was in their way because they're taking this. One of them's taking the exit. The other one also did not know the lane, which is fine. Not a problem. See, I approached the problem correctly by, number one, identifying, yes, there is power in this name of Jesus. And the reality is, when it is invoked in the realm, what I see that represents, oh my God, now this bozo's caught up to us. Now the four-wheeler bozo's caught us. The one that's just driving in a way, knowingly or unknowingly, that's creating all sorts of chaos. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? They somehow know to go the perfect speed to thwart my efforts. So I surrender. I give up. I'm going slow as I got to go, however slow that is. And this is what I mean by physics. This realm isn't real. Some of these vehicles manage to go slow and fast simultaneously, right? That somehow that vehicle's going fast and slow, meaning when I was going fast, when I was trying to speed up from having slowed down necessarily, there they were. And now that I've slowed down to try to get them away from me, now they're going slow somehow without changing observable speed, right? What is that? I don't know, but I'm watching it happen. They are repeatedly entering into my sphere, probably attracted into it, I suspect. That could be some version of in the Bible. Christ felt somebody tugging at his garment, and then that woman received healing just by that. Maybe these people are so hungry for the healing, they keep repeatedly coming into my orbit in my sphere while I'm engaging with these energies and manifesting these energies. Who knows? Could be. And if somebody wants to misconstrue that into I'm saying that I'm Jesus, that's fine. That you said that. I didn't say that. I'm pretty sure Jesus in the Bible said some version of that when questions. He basically said that's what you're saying. And then they took that to mean that he was signing off on agree. I'm not agreeing. I'm agreeing I'm agreeing that that's what you're saying. If in fact one is were to say that in response to what I'm saying, did not Jesus in the Bible respond that way when questioned by the local authorities of the realm? He said, "Well, yeah, that's what you're saying," and they took that to mean he's agreeing. No, he was saying that's what you said. which is also to acknowledge I did not say that. Not going to say that. Meanwhile, we know the tree by the fruit. And I know this. You got certain people like EBT and TBE and others running around wanting to claim Christ. And the Bible giving a definition of Christ's followers, casting out demons in his name. I'm doing it on live stream. Now, I would then be corrected at the level of, well, no, you didn't do that. The glory is to the Most High. I am that one, meaning that is my essence, is one with what you mean when you or what you refer to when you say Most High. So yeah, I just did that. If that's my essence, and that's the revolution, is to say, yes, my essence is one with that force. So the I am did that. So if using the confusing English language, that then seems like I'm claiming credit for that outside of that force. No, I'm not. I'm not claiming ability to do that outside of my own nature. See, because even I am now feeling some type of way in the moment. Why? Because now the wicked spirits are like, well, wait a minute. Maybe he's not actually giving a proper performance. See, the legalese is perking their ears up. And this is the spiritual warfare. The legalese, they're like, well, wait a minute. We just saw him performing at a proper level, so much so that, you know, one of their kinmen, or one of their kin, fled to walk in the dry place, seeking rest and finding none. That's how uncomfortable it got within old Benton. But now I'm starting to feel a little bit that, well, maybe they got their ears are perking up a little bit because Benton got over his skis. So let me be clear. I'm not responsible. Whatever that power is, when I'm talking about Christ and I'm talking about Jesus, there's power in the name of Jesus. I don't claim that power as far as now I'm some sort of superhero in the realm. I'm not claiming that. I'm very much a human. But in the moments in which I am able to empty myself of my own wickedness, right, in conjunction with those forces, the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, in conjunction with that force, meaning give the credit to that force, I'll take whatever little bit of credit is given to me that I deserve for at least getting out of my own way enough. That's the only part of the credit that accrues to me. So I want to be very clear at the level of the legalese. I'm only claiming credit for that part of it. Now, the rest of it is credit I share in because of knowing that but by the way, my nature isn't capable of otherwise anyway. So is there really any credit to be spread around? Right. Is there really any opposite of blame to assign? And do you see now why I must have such high level access to the brutal application of logic? Because I got to be able to use my logical mind to get me the fuck up out of a pickle I almost just created for myself. See, that's why the arrogance and the big-headedness and all of this, it's only a problem if I let it become a problem. See, and we just saw the way in which it could potentially become a problem. If I start feeling myself a little too much in a certain type of way, and even more documents falling from the top rope here as the destroyed infrastructure rears its ugly head yet again in the greatest nation on earth. Because bouncy, bouncy. I'd love to. The hill is speeding us up, toots. No, we're speeding up because the rig wants to cruise. We're speeding up because the computer systems have detected if we speed up, then that will make it to where when we start this slight downhill, we can cruise and save on fuel. That's what's causing the speeding, lady. And it's going to do it again. But whatever. This is man's folly and foolishness. Certainly. Business, by the way, business, as we pass a trailer that says Uber Freight on the side, Yes, there's even a gig economy for truck driving in a way. In a way. Pretty soon, I'm going to have an entire set of the exact same clothing, and one set I will never wear truck driving because this is just coffee's all over me, all over the fanny pack, all over parts of my clothing, all over part of the seat. I guess we will buy a new coffee cup, one for the road. 5 miles to the next exit, 70 miles out from the drop. And also, when I work this schedule, especially on dropping hooks, you know, the thing about a dropping hook, it can take just as long as a live load or a live unload. That's the thing about dropping hooks, especially with this how spread out some of these facilities are. And it's actually worse on the clock because it uses up more of my. So I might have to be on duty way more because I'm driving. Sometimes it's 20 minutes of driving just around the facility, and that's all. That none of that, unless I'm going to do that at 4 miles an hour. Which would double or triple the amount of time. By the way, it's not effectively not. It's just not realistic to do that. Whereas if I'm in the dock getting loaded, I could be off duty or in the sleeper berth and not dinging my 70-hour clock. But it makes it way more. I have more of a chance of missing the busy times at the shippers and receivers because truckers have a knack for all showing up simultaneously, in waves for whatever reason. And I do want to say, whatever people chat, you know, based on what I'm talking about, there's really not a direct connection. Now, I understand people may get excited and want to share what they, some of their knowledge, but, realistically, I've had the chat remind me of certain things, but nobody's been able to tell me anything from that chat in quite some time. I mean, at the risk of, again, sounding arrogant, but that's not much of a concern for somebody born on August the 12th, right? And who may very well be descended from Davy Crockett, who one of his famous sayings is first make sure you're right, then go ahead. And I've more or less lived my life that way. If I know myself to be right, I'm not that concerned with. So yeah, the fact is, I'm not being corrected or my ideas are also not being magnified and added to from the chat. Because in order for that to be possible, we would need a hashtag GOML campaign, get on my level, which isn't even my level, but how about level up, if your essence is also one with the most super intelligent force of love possible, more correctly, how about level up within that, right? Which is, correctly speaking, the learning or the unlearning of all of the things about your psychology that cause you to be unable to get out of your own motherfucking way. Because look at EBT, Enslaved by Truth. Look at TBE. They're unable to get out of their own ways to serve as a vessel for this thing they seem to want to serve as a vessel for, because they're approaching it backwards. So back to the power of Jesus. There's power in the name of Jesus. I approached these issues and what I dare I say what I wanted to attain or aspire to, what I aspired to attain was by recognizing, okay, these wicked forces are stirred up by things like Psalm 23 and by the power that is invoked via Jesus's name. I'm observing it, it's real, unless I'm just being gaslit and punked by the realm itself, right? There has to be room for doubt. Okay. So how about we just go with that? So I said, okay, I'm not going to go with this idea that God is love, meaning, Jesus loves you, right? I'm going to go with God is love from the part that instead of leading me to disempowering myself through my own choices, which was, by the way, the cosmology that was espoused by Enslaved by Truth in that excerpt that's now, it's probably, unless it's been deleted, it's on my post tab over on the John Wayne channel. And where I yesterday started out the stream explaining how EBT has it exactly backwards because he's operating based on the psychology that's been put in his pretty little head based on the system, what benefits the system. So, of course, he has it exactly backwards. He's in a trap. He's ensnared. He can't hashtag GOML if he even meets the requirements. The requirement would be that his essence would have to also be one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, which I suspect is the case, but I will never know because I'll never be him. Which is, no, we're not all one at the highest level. That's not true. We're not. Not in that context. Not in the context in which I'm presently speaking. Absolutely not. One moment, driving. Now we're walled in, so aborted pass due to not going to pass on the concrete wall. 58 miles an hour now. We almost made it to 70 there briefly after going through an interchange. Of course, I could have been a dick and not let this dude over, but I'm not going to do that. 65 it is. 64. 63. 60 perhaps. And I think another part of this is also real quick to change topics briefly back to truck driving. Something I just thought of is I've more or less proven to the company that if I'm able to drive, I'm not going to work an extra 2 hours of driving through rush hour traffic to try to make up for whatever we lost because I wasn't able to work my preferred schedule. Right? I'll just end up parking it. Tomorrow's another day. Right? Whereas there are drivers who they're just going to run their clock out no matter what. And, they probably don't give a fuck about taking advantage of the inherent benefits of driving the hours I prefer to drive. And it happens to line up with what my body wants to do. Also, maybe their bodies are not set up for, waking up by midnight most mornings. And then so back to the whataboutisms. The whataboutism is the ignorance. A whataboutism is ignorance making a antithesis. So it's What a whataboutism is when faced with proposition or thesis, right? It is the question is being asked from ignorance because the antithesis does not know the thesis, meaning does not experience the thesis. But that's the arrogance. That's the narcissism, right? That's the superiority complex, which is, guess what? Which is also what? An inferiority complex. Isn't, or at least on the same spectrum. Isn't that interesting? So it's the suspicion. So the motivation inside of the individual for the whataboutism, it's motivated by perhaps now experiencing, oh, wait a minute, if what Benton asserts has any validity, that would represent a superiority and then confer upon me or them an inferiority. That don't feel right. That's definitely don't feel good with whatever levels of narcissism could be going. And I'm not accusing anybody, but I'm just saying, like, society itself has become narcissistic, as I've noted, right? So, and this one probably will be done in about an hour when we get to the delivery, just so you know. Probably I will then charge the devices, and I'm sure I have a lot more to say. So, unless I fall into a reverie of my own thoughts, we're looking at 45 minutes to an hour on this stream, and then probably another stream later. Probably, can't say for sure. But I will drop this loaded trailer, bobtail, hook up the loaded trailer, and then that would be when I would be able to start another one and charge the phone charge both phones while all of that is happening. How foolish of me to have thought I could store the bills in such a silly place and drive however many miles it was without the. Although normally it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but let's see if it can all be put back together. And that's just hoping it's not soaking wet. The bills of lading. Contractual, commerce documents, right? Certificates. CCC. There's nothing here in this place that's not a business, or more correctly, everything that's not the most super intelligent force of love possible is a business. Which is, by the way, what? Death. By its very nature, business is death, right? So when Bazukov dropped the 250 on me, the tactical nuke donation, that was right on time, by the way, got me through the holidays, the holiday slowdowns in my ability to take in money through various means. I said, well, is there anything you want me to cover? And he specifically asked about the parable of the talents from the Bible. And then, part of the problem with the Bible is that it is mostly, while at the level of a parable, we can say, well, it works on many levels, but, it seems to most closely be tied to business, right? Well, here's what I mean with the whataboutisms, and I'm not accusing Bazukov of this, but I mean the whataboutism, would bring it back to, well, what about the business aspects, the monetary aspects of this parable? And I would say, yeah, that's the aspects that's dead, or one of the aspects that's dead. That the business is identified with this realm. My essence wasn't somewhere else doing business, conducting financial transactions. I'm 100% certain of that. What I am and what and what it was going on. I feel like I do. I don't know that. Maybe that's the next. Starting to have strong suspicion, but I know what wasn't happening was uh, economies and uh, business transactions and money and fiat currency and Federal Reserve notes. None of that was occurring. Now I'm in this place, and everything that's not one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level is business, is death, is destruction by its very nature when viewed from the perspective of my essence. Because everything that isn't my essence will die, will not survive this place, cannot move through that, is not able to travel through that straight down that straight path, right? The narrow path through the straight gate, or however it was termed in the Bible. See how it works? Well, probably you don't. That would be called ignorance, and that's okay. I was ignorant to much of this until very recently. That's fine. But however, if knowledge is power, ignorance cannot be bliss. Those two ideas are at cross purposes. If knowledge is power, ignorance can never be bliss. So is the idea that ignorance is bliss, is that system speak that serves the system? Probably. But then now we have whataboutisms attempting to validate manifested truth via its nature of ignorance and death and destruction. That ain't possible. What is possible is that I fall away from expressing in any given moment my nature of super intelligent love at the highest level. If I fall away from that rebelliously and then go with the into the whataboutism, now the spiritual attack temporarily finds a foothold. And that in that moment, guess whose army I'm serving? Not the Most High. I'm serving the army of the enemy. I'm performing in ways that can never escape this place. Isn't that interesting? That is the rebellion of the Adamic race, is the allowing my creative force at times to become subverted through my rebellious refusal to submit to my own higher nature, EBT. And when I refuse to submit to my own higher nature within myself, that's the where EBT. EBT speaking about it as if it exists outside. No, I'm only able to apprehend that within me. So the where is the Bible answers the where, EBT. See, the answers are in your own book, but you lack the capacity to apprehend and interface with the concepts by refusing to practice spiritually within your own sphere of influence inside of yourself. You're refusing to do that, right? Thus, you are only capable of serving this realm of death and destruction. Because of your rebellious refusal, you cannot serve anything other than this realm of death and destruction. Do you see the trap? Well, if you saw the trap, perhaps it would not be ensnaring you. Or you would at least be able to look down and see that there's a bear trap, the jaws of a bear trapper piercing the flesh of your lower leg, sir, metaphorically. Metaphorically. Perhaps that's the nuclear family. I don't know. Perhaps this unit that traditional family values Christians and MAGA are upholding as sacrosanct above all, maybe that in practice in the realm represents a bear trap around your leg, partner. Maybe the old ball and chain is actually the old nuclear family, and it ain't a ball and chain shackled to you. It's a motherfucking bear trap. I don't know. Maybe. I can't call it. Now, if humanity weren't here in this heaven or hell realm manifesting a motherfucking hell realm, that probably wouldn't be the case. That probably wouldn't be the case if it is in fact the case. But I'm interested in what is with respect to the realm. My interest lies in 100% unadulterated reality of this hell motherfucking realm. I want it. I want the full shot, both barrels, because in order to connect with what I need to connect to within myself to go to the next level, in order to do that, I need selfishly to be able to observe, report, characterize, and experience this realm on its own terms, exactly as it is, not as I believe I've been taught that it would be or should be or could be, because in the now I can only interface with it based on what it is in this moment, a motherfucking hell realm that is in the process, in spite of your best efforts, of turning your own children into a reflection of what it is. How about that? And that's can't feel good. And how do I know that? Because I know the people. Because I'm watching the people. You telling me your kids don't have smartphones? Then maybe I'll say, well, maybe they're not in the process of becoming this realm, or in the process of behaving in ways that suit this realm of death and destruction. If they got smartphones, I guarantee you that is happening. You better keep them off the motherfucking internet, Jack. Is that even possible nowadays? Yeah, maybe till they hit the age of 12 or 13 or 14. But you really gonna put your foot down across the board? Because my parents put their foot down when it came to cable television, and we didn't have it. And they probably tried to put their foot down when we went to Granny's or my best friend's house, right? They probably tried to put their foot down and eventually just gave up, right? And eventually they themselves had cable TV, by the time I was something of a teenager, later into my teen years as the eldest, right? So see how the system itself, the constant Chinese water torture of the drip, drip, drip of evil and wickedness and decadence and death and depravity, that water torture has an effect on all of us. And what is the typical strategy employed is to deny the existence of the drip, 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 or to attempt to explain it in terms other than that. It's a war of attrition. And the enemy treats it as such. It says, yeah, okay, of course, old Benton here, historically, he'll get into this religious fervor. Right? We know I was on the wrong track. The fact that my initial direct experience of Christ, I was running around calling it a religious conversion experience. The fact that I approached it in those terms shows you that I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about, but I still knew what I experienced. It was the reality that I wasn't properly facing the full reality of, or at least as much as I'm able to, right? Here's yet another bozo four-wheeler going the perfect speed to thwart my efforts. Somehow going fast and slow simultaneously. Probably attracted to whatever's being emitted from my energy sphere energetically. Right. Probably powerfully attracted. Don't know that that's happening, but attracted nonetheless. Making traffic at 3:10 a.m. Silly little humans. Silly humans making traffic at 3:10 a.m. So any communications directed at these performances on these live streams coming from a place of whataboutism, right? Number one, it's the person proving that they either lack the ability at this present time to grasp the concepts that I'm attempting to elucidate or am elucidating, or either they themselves are aware of the validity of the concepts, and or the wicked spirits that are inhabiting them are certainly aware of the validity and are seeking a means to attack and undermine. And that is the crabs in the bucket, meaning how can we get him to default to his rebellious human nature, right? What attacks? And so the catharsis and the deliverance of yesterday, for me personally, in the conducting of that stream, was to finally transcend the limitations of the whataboutism, because the whataboutism was able to find footing against me, but only if it came from certain individuals that I used to hold in high regard. But the reality is, until an individual proves themselves to be on my level at the lowest level of attainment between their mind, body, and spirit, meaning what can they exhibit, I can't have a relationship with them at the level of friendship. We can have an acquaintanceship, which will consist of me waiting patiently for the day when they may rise to a level of being able to be in friendship. Own failing, a placing of my pearls before swine, by the way. Again, not not in this moment being too arrogant. It's that I wasn't arrogant enough. What allowed me to even enter into something that hopefully would have became a friendship was my own false humility and my own willingness to accept one of my fellow humans who has not risen to the minimum standard. And because I'm the one out here exhibiting that I'm running ahead of the pack, shout out to Drew World Order, Benton, you seem to be ahead of your time. Yeah, I am ahead of my time. We all are seeming, not all, but of the ones of us who are seemingly running this obstacle course, I'm absolutely in the lead, at least in this collection of individuals. I'm absolutely out front. Absolutely, I am. 100%. Of course I am. I'm David Goggins. David Gogginsing this shit to some extent, on some level. How could I not be out front? Because in order to run out front, the only way to do that is to show a certain capacity for suffering, a certain capacity for delaying of gratification, a certain capacity for just making oneself do things that one may not would prefer, maybe not to do at all, right? A self-flagellation, a kicking of one's own ass, an attraction to a lifestyle that embodies ascetic. What is the proper term for this? Wait, monastic asceticism. So part of who Benton is speaking to you right now is a person who's been practicing monastic asceticism, and I mean the actual dictionary definitions of both of those words conjoined. I mean exactly that. If I could safely look up the definitions, I probably would. Maybe I will. We'll see once I get out of traffic here. If that happens. If that I began to practice at levels to begin to embody that well over 10 years ago now. Not that I did it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Certainly I did not, but I certainly did at times, and the frequency of that, of when it happened, certainly increased over time. Right. So let's see. Can we find the definition of the term monastic within the next 33 miles so that we don't miss the exit here? Let us see. English, motherfucker. Do you speak it? All right. Monastic. Of or relating to monasteries or monks. So then we'll go monastic, a person with monastic ways, a monk. Then we'll go to monk. A male member of a monastic order who has devoted his life for religious service. In earlier usage, an eremite or hermit devoted to solitude, as opposed to a cenobite who lived communally. Hang on, they're powerfully attracted to me yet again, so we got to slow our roll here. Now, what some people do is when they start to catch up to a semi, they hang back and hang back and hang back, and then they wait so they can trap the semi up against a slower moving vehicle up ahead, and then they pass. So that may have been what was happening, perhaps. Hard to say. It's funny how they were catching up to me, but now they're just right there because I'm sped back up. Funny how that works. Anyway, so that's pretty much close enough to what a monk is, I would say. And then let's go to asceticism or ascetic. Let's just go straight to ascetic, actually. Ascetic. See, it thinks I said aesthetic. But I tell you, when I first got this phone, it could absolutely understand what I said. It's gotten worse over time by listening to me. Ascetic. Yeah, it can't detect the nuance. It's not able to detect the nuance. And the traffic now is simply unwilling to leave me alone. I can't just go 70 to 72 and not be in traffic at this point. So much so that the last big rig I passed is now catching me. So we're just going to go 65. If you can't beat them, join them. Or surrender is a valid tactic, Americans. I give up. I just give up. The effort is not worth it. I'm not getting enough of a reward for the effort I'm putting in. So let's see if we can type in ascetic. It probably would understand if I said asceticism. One moment. Now we're erasing all of the things that just typed into the search box. I guess we could just hit the X. Asceticism. But see, it knows that because there's not an aestheticism. Funny. Asceticism. The principles and practices of an ascetic. Extreme self-denial and austerity. So ascetic is of or relating to ascetics, characterized by rigorous self-denial or self-discipline, austere, abstinent, involving a withholding of physical pleasure. By the way, damn near a renunciate. Let's go to renunciate. That's almost the definition of a renunciate. Renunciate. One who has renounced. And what that would imply is a person who has renounced the things of this world, meaning like materialism, possession, business, the storing up of riches in this realm of death and destruction. Again, what I would say is a proper strategy. So as I became more and more over time grasping of my true nature, even if I didn't have the words to express it to you folks, even as I had not yet reached true knowledge of self, if I've even reached it, and again, that can never be a permanent state, as far as I can tell. Anyway, I have to assume that can never be a permanent state, at least not within this human experience. Although maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. We'll find out. Or maybe we won't, but perhaps I will find out. Perhaps. Hmm. Perhaps. That strategically, I began to reverse what the realm had indoctrinated me with at the level of my psychology. And then more and more strategically adopted by turning away from everything disempowering, right? By turning away from everything disempowering and embracing action and bringing forth through creative force only or as much as possible in ways that are consistent with my true essence or nature, and which would, by the way, wouldn't that necessarily come along, at least for a time, with a turning away from the trappings of this world. The trappings, by the way, interesting use of terminology. The trappings of this realm of business, money, transaction, right? Transactional societies in which everything's a business. So a turning away from disempowerment into where my power lies, by the way, power in the name of Jesus, also interesting. Almost as if whatever is referred to by Christ or Jesus is perhaps also one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. Almost as if that could be the case. And here's the revolution, is to say, well, maybe whatever that is inside of me, the kingdom of God, according to the Bible, being within me. And then by implication, within each one of you. So the getting out of the own way would represent a learning how to access exactly that, but where EBT, by first going inward into myself, go into thy closet. And do what? Enter into the kingdom. Where? Inside of me, in the closet within myself. Now the realm already has a connotation for closet. Oh, now we're onto a strong homosexual connotation that the realm has put there, which leads me to believe perhaps I'm on the right track here. Because surprise, surprise, the realm itself has prepared something ridiculous sounding to do what? EBT level gallows humor. Ha ha ha, the closet. Now let's all put our minds in the gutter. And if perhaps not we, but some of the individuals comprising whatever the audience is, that's what I meant when I said we in that context. I must be specific with the pronoun. That's the we, right? Now it, or really more correctly, it temporarily fell into gutter trash levels of thinking to do what? To make sure that the individuals are not able in those moments to properly identify within themselves. Because when I properly identify within myself, I'm not capable of gallows humor and gutter level trash thinking of, oh, closet, ha ha ha. We know what that means. Yeah, it means that the system already has something prepared for when my discourse veers into certain areas. Surprise, surprise. Almost as if I'm targeted, almost as if I'm the target of attacks when I am so bold of a revolutionary in this realm of death and destruction. What more revolutionary act is possible than to say, I am identified with my essence, which is one with the most super intelligent force of love possible. And that essence cannot fear this realm of death and destruction. This realm cannot fear or have anxiety or worry with what this realm sets forth for me on a daily basis. Almost got shed of some more low level energies right there. We almost had another deliverance on stream. In due time, in due time. But certainly the tissues, and or more correctly, my experience of my sphere of influence via what's my perception of the physical tissues and whatever may be going on within the tissues. And this is where the body comes in, folks, because the body will become a limiting factor on the dealing with and uh, releasing of this trauma and captured energies of the past that will be limited by the state of the body itself, or can be, right? Can be. So, surprise, surprise, I pumped myself up to 195 pounds of muscle, well, mostly muscle, 34-inch waist back then, and 34 pants and jeans, not these stretchy old man pants. Levi's. I was working at Outback Steakhouse in my dark colored Levi 550s, I think. 195 pounds of looking like a linebacker back then. And surprise, surprise, I might be maybe a buck 25 to buck 28, buck 30, probably about a buck 30, buck 32 maybe. Almost as if the asceticism I'm referring to, in part accomplished that some of those tissues not even being around anymore. And the idea that, our bodies, in fact, are completely replaced every 7 years, right? That within 7 years, all of the atoms and all of the various cells will be completely replaced. If that's true, it kind of makes sense, don't it? The earlier versions of Benton being erased, at least in part physically. And now I'm getting some healing in the right shoulder area, which is mostly normal compared to the past, but still has a little bit of inflammation and pain in there. Shout out, by the way, to the anti-inflammatory effects of the tart cherry extract, which is so powerful. I would not recommend that anybody go straight to what I've been doing, which is 3 doses a day for the last 2 days. That's some powerful medicine. This is not medical advice. I'm speaking to my experience, which YouTube apparently allows, probably has to spiritually, at the level of the legalese and such, probably has to. As the coffee continues to leak all over me. Oh well. I do need to pull over. Although, if we make it all the way to this receiver, they got a little area. I'll pull over and slide the tandems on the trailer and relieve myself. And can we just go ahead and face the reality that if you grew up in America and you're listening to the sound of my voice, it's a near certainty that you are inhabited with wicked spirits, unclean spirits, and demonic spirits. Now, I can't say for sure because I'm not you, but there is a very high statistical probability. And well, here's how you can know. You don't need to post it in the chat, and this is back to facing reality on reality's terms. Whatever your regular habits are around certain activities, many of which may be sexual, but don't have to be strictly sexual, based on what most of you are surely involved in on a regular basis, you would have to be susceptible to these wicked spirits, unclean spirits, and demonic spirits. There's no way, because they look for any opportunity to enter in. They are obsessed with being able to cite legalese based on the misbehavior of a human. And by the way, anybody who thinks they're a Christian, this is Christian doctrine. I hate to break it to you. Sure, a person can be delusional and in denial all they want. What I'm saying is based on what's written and what you claim is the book that you've agreed to adhere to, I can show you in your book where this is real. And that based on your own actions, you're then susceptible to these forces. Whether you want to view yourself. Remember, advertising cannot allow you to view yourself as somebody who's susceptible to being demonized. You can't possibly be demonized solely based on how advertising operates within you at the level of your own self-image. And you can go out here and understand and apprehend all of these conspiracy theories all you want. I thought I found a wide spot, but I didn't see it quick enough. I was going to pull over on the wide spot. It disappeared. Unfortunately. Too quickly. Let's get back up to speed so this rig don't catch us behind us. And by the way, back to the Carmine Jr. example for Sopranos, the fact that he was able to correctly refer to the existence of the philosophies, the spiritual philosophies in the show, proves that the character understood at least an intermediate, was able to grasp at least an intermediate level those concepts. The fact that I can explain all of this in a coherent discourse proves a certain level of me comprehending and grasping all of these ideas. And until I observe other people on my level of being able to talk about all of this, I'm just going to assume they're not there yet. And in fact, in the recent past, I wasn't able to put all of this together. And this isn't even the entirety of the picture, by the way. And I think I just had the lid on. This is how silly a person can be. I think I've been dripping coffee all over myself this whole time because I failed to screw the motherfucking lid on properly. So what I'm really doubling down on and really what I'm really honing in on is that anything in my life that is not specifically aligned with these practices and me moving into being able to more perfectly practice or less imperfectly practice, expressing in each new moment my true essence, one with the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, I got no time for it. And I'm just not willing. I'm less and less willing to humor or entertain such foolishness and nonsense, such as what we saw practiced at the level of whataboutisms in my live chat from specific users, one of which was in a thought experiment, or at least someone pretending to be, but I believe it to be the real McCoy. And then also this lube ass bozo who used to show up and you could guarantee that he would derail the conversation by joining the panel, right? By clicking the link and then derailing whatever conversation was happening. That was a certainty. But now he's in, I believe, I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure he was in there. What about this and what about that? I don't know. What about it? You tell me. Let the dead bury the dead in a thought experiment. Render unto Caesar, Lou Bass. I don't, what I am, my essence don't know nothing about any of that. So I can't tell you. You're asking the wrong entity or force. You're asking the wrong force. You're speaking on dead things. Let the dead bury the dead, sir. You're going to have to go ask death. You're going to have to go ask the antithesis. I'm the thesis. I'm the thesis, sir. I don't really know. All I know about death is death ain't much. All I know is death seems to be not wielding much power, if any, at all in this realm. So I don't know what to do about that. Why don't you go whataboutism death? Is death somewhere being whataboutismed? You know, is that happening? Death and destruction and depravity and decadence of all types? Is that off somewhere being whataboutism? I doubt it. And what bothers me about that I haven't been able to put my finger on until recently is that I can recognize that this realm can never express as a heaven realm until enough of the individuals begin to prove their own grasp of these concepts in a way that is equal to the level in which I can practice them mind, body, and spirit. Meaning they'll have to at least exhibit a minimum level of spiritual attainment. Being able to brutally apply logic until they can demonstrate that brutal application of logic. It's not that will be the thing that holds back humanity in mass, assuming humanity's even advancing on that progression. And I would say I don't even see evidence of that. But in my own thought experiment and impugning, considering humanity, the individuals, some of the individuals in a best case scenario, until I see individuals, any individual other than myself, exhibiting an attainment of the brutal application of logic to what? To oneself. That's back to the ascetic, the ascetic monk, right? Back to that, right? The denial, the austerity, the self-flagellation, or what seems like self-flagellation, the what is it? There's a specific term for this. Delaying of gratification. Well, hell, I'm almost on the level of just why even bother with if the gratification itself can be delayed. What's the point of why even bother myself with the gratification itself? Or more correctly, the gratification belongs to this place. It's dead. Let the dead bury the dead, render unto Caesar. That ain't me anyway. The gratification can never be me. How about that? Or more correctly, what I am can never seek gratification in that way. And the antithesis of that proposition says, well, come to this place of death and destruction and gratify yourself and see that it feels good at the level of your flesh. By the way, been there, done that. And so the thesis or the proposition says, what I am can never experience a lack of gratification. What I am never experiences the feeling of, I would like to be gratified. What I am, in fact, fills that hole. How about that? That's the revolution. That's the revolution that will overthrow the Moloch's machine, by the way. When the moment comes that enough of the individuals who are perpetuating Moloch's machine individually, when enough of those individuals revolutionarily transform themselves inside of themselves in the where and by the how, then Moloch's machine cannot function. And that's what would transport this place. That's what would form this place from hell realm to heaven realm. Nothing short of that will do. Why? Because the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level is not capable of creating and operating Moloch's machine. But until proven otherwise, humanity is not capable of creating and operating machines that don't, in the final analysis, end up representing Moloch's overarching machine, aka Hell Realm. And I'm showing my work, folks. What aboutism that till the cows come home? Who cares? I just showed and proved with brutal logic. What aboutism the brutal logic all you want? All you're going to do is make yourself appear foolish and ignorant, because truth can't be validated by your ignorance. Can't be validated. It certainly doesn't need to be. That's what that is the whataboutism is ignorance trying to validate truth, which is the exact same thing as ignorance is bliss and truth is power being the same. Or sorry, ignorance is bliss and truth is power. That's the exact same thing as both things being simultaneously true. The whataboutism being allowed to validate the ignorance of the whataboutism being allowed to seemingly validate the truth, the manifested truth, which, by the way, that is the success, the seeming success of the appeal via ridicule to the peanut gallery, which is not valid, which is simply not valid, which will never be valid, because it's not possible for truth to be power and ignorance to be bliss. Both things cannot occur simultaneously. I just showed my work and proved the whataboutisms to be null and void, because I am that one. How about you? Hashtag GOML. Get on this level in a thought experiment. You ain't there, partner. And I can explain the where and the how. I have no sway over whether or not in a thought experiment performs in that way, because short of performing, nothing else will do. Because the only way to go through that, to travel that narrow path and go through that straight gate and get up out of here, is via performance over time. It's the only thing that'll do. Nothing short of that will do. Sorry about your luck, LARPers. Sorry about your luck, death and destruction, LARPing as if it's we're all one at the highest level, brother. No, we are not. Because some of y'all is identified very, very strongly with this realm of death and destruction. So no, we are not all one at the highest level. Perhaps most of y'all are one at the lowest level. I don't know. You want to say as above, so below? Well, that don't pertain to what I am. As above, so below. Well, if my essence is the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, I can't experience that lowest level, meaning it may as well not exist from my perspective. See how it works? Can't pin me down. Good luck trying. Fast as fast can be. You'll never catch me. That's the quickening spirit, by the way. What does the Bible say? Something about Christ as a quickening spirit? That's the quickening spirit. Oh, you think because I'm vibrating at a certain level in this realm, you think that you think you can pin me down? Well, I will just quicken my spirit, and evasive action, you can't pin it down. You can't pin down a quickening spirit, because the quickening spirit can always vibrate just a little bit faster now, can it? Because no matter what, it can always go to that next higher level of vibration. Always. That's what the Bible means when it says Christ is a quickening spirit. And if my nature is one with that same essence that Christ's nature is one with, And in the moments in which I am able to express my nature, that means when I need to, the Spirit quickens, Jack. Woo! And this is this is the most powerful preaching possible. Praise Almighty God in the mighty name of Christ Jesus. This is what's meant by Jesus Christ is Lord. What that means is the victory of the Most High, the thesis, that's the victory of the Most High in the flesh, in the flesh, the victory in the flesh over the antithesis or the proposition or the idea that somehow the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level is not the most high and the greatest above all. Woo! So that's what is meant by praise Almighty God in the mighty name of Christ Jesus. It's the victory, the administration in the flesh, and that's the revolution. It's the victory of my essence spiritually over this flesh. It is that victory. Woo! And the enemy can't touch that victory. But the victory must be administrated because I am the administrator of this particular meat suit. It's up to me to apply the victory of the Christ consciousness in the flesh. If there was a human being referred to as Jesus, and I know there was, and maybe that was a succession of avatars, that's fine. Who cares? I got no beef with that. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. But this realm has created a psychology and installed it where I can't ever, over time, express in the way that Christ did. Bullshit. We just don't. There will be limitations to that time frame. It might be this moment, the next moment, and the next moment, and then I go right back to rebellion, and then only to step back into again manifesting consistent with my nature, the same nature as Christ, by the way. How about that? That's the revolution. It's got the revolution in the name. Or the Son in the name. Mockery of God, perhaps. Mockery of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. Well, the antithesis of that proposition, EBT's gallows humor, all it can do is make fun and mock and ridicule what it can never apprehend. Uh-oh, taking the wrong exit here. Almost made the wrong turn there, buddy. Let's not do that. Anyway, we're almost to the intermission, right? So we will be signing off, and most likely, based on how I'm feeling right now and vibrating and moving and quickening and dropping knowledge, you're welcome. You're welcome, by the way. This is why I deserved and earned. You know, I'm still earning all of the largesse bestowed upon me back when I was not working and sleeping in my car in Los Angeles. I never fail to earn my keep. Anyway, perhaps there will be a part 2. Thanks for watching. Bye.